as I've said, in desperate circumstances, with nothing. I have seen people, as I've said, in desperate circumstances, with nothing. I have seen people, as I've said, in desperate circumstances.
People in desperate circumstances ever since. To many, many people in desperate circumstances ever since. To many, many people in desperate circumstances ever since.
Forced out by desperate circumstance, decisions to emigrate. Whether they were forced out by desperate circumstance.
Most desperate circumstances. I mean, $1 a day. We're living under some of the most desperate circumstances. I mean, $1 a day type poverty. We'd actually managed to get them to do work for Microsoft. In this pilot program. And lo and behold, these young people in this refugee camp were doing competitive work. And I just thought it was the most amazing thing. And they were so inspiring. So we did this little video. We ran it on Hulu. It was like a public service announcement. And I thought we would just get tons of donations, right? And instead, I got hate mail. And this guy, Joe in Ohio, wrote me this email, and the subject line was, "You are ruining America." And he said, you know, you're taking our jobs and sending them to Africans. And it really hit a chord because I both empathize with him, but I was also incredibly frustrated because I was doing this as a nonprofit. I was certainly not profiting from this. And these refugees were just barely eking out enough to survive. And so my initial instinct was to write a nasty email back, right? And I wrote that nasty email and then thankfully did not send it. Best advice I ever heard in business is if you're about to say or do something really nasty, sleep on it. It's usually not your better angels, right?
Yes.
And so I slept on it, and the next morning I woke up and I thought, let me just Google Ohio unemployment statistics. And I did. And it turned out that Ohio had been extremely hard hit by the recession. And I thought to myself, maybe this guy, Joe, lost his job. You know, who knows what happens? Like maybe his wife has cancer and he can't afford her treatment. I mean, who knows, right? And so often when people are angry, it's because they're suffering. It's coming from a place of pain. So I thought, let me acknowledge Joe's pain. And I wrote a really nice email. And I was like, Joe, I put this in the book. I was like, Joe, you know, I'm so sorry. Maybe you have a point. Maybe there's some way that we could do work in Ohio. Maybe there's a way our model could adapt itself here. And I'm totally open to your ideas and opinions. Joe wrote back with a really nice email. And he said, thank you for listening. I'm sorry I was rude before, but I just lost my job. My state has been really hard hit. We've seen a lot of factory closures. It totally changed the dialogue.
Wow.
And that actually inspired us to start our U.S. program. It inspired me to go to my board and fight for us to do something domestically. My board had said, no, we need to focus. We can only focus on international work. So it was a fight. And over the years, I finally managed to convince them and raise the money. But it started with that email.
Isn't that what a beautiful example of how something that can come in that is so painful can be transformed into something incredible and so beautiful, and how many lives you guys have touched here in the States. I just think it also speaks to who you are as a leader, though, to have the emotional reaction, to have, the foresight to go, all right, I'm not going to touch the computer anymore tonight, but then to go to your board and to fight what sounds like it took quite a while before you were able to get the approval and the endorsement and the support to build out the programs here. And I think, off camera, we're living under some of the most desperate circumstances. I mean, $1 a day type poverty. We'd actually managed to get them to do work for
thought to be used by those in desperate circumstances, those who were in need. And this is a needy season, or it used to be in the early modern period.
Devastating and desperate circumstances all over, say, Central America, for example. So fleeing devastating and desperate circumstances all over, say, Central America, for example.
For this powder, but under the desperate circumstances, we really have no other alternatives. And John Brown actually, for this powder, but under the desperate circumstances, we really have no other alternatives. And John Brown actually emerges from the American War of Independence as probably the richest man in Rhode Island. For this powder, but under the desperate circumstances, we really have no other alternatives. And John Brown actually emerges from the American War of Independence as probably the richest man in Rhode Island. So he made some of his fortune in powder runs. He was also involved in the molasses trade and other illicit trades before the Revolution. But part of his fortune was very much as a war profiteer of sorts in our very War of Independence. So for this powder, but under the desperate circumstances, we really have no other alternatives.
In desperate circumstances, with disparate individuals in desperate circumstances. His work in that genre has earned him awards from both BAFTA and with disparate individuals in desperate circumstances. He's made a television career out of surrounding himself with disparate individuals in desperate circumstances. Television career out of surrounding himself with disparate individuals in desperate circumstances. A television career out of surrounding himself with disparate individuals in desperate circumstances. His work in that
are in very desperate circumstances in terms of the prospect of trying to do without that assistance, as are in very desperate circumstances in terms of the prospect of trying to do
circumstances. Tabitha Hicks in the little town of Percy was inboxed by a teacher when she was 15 years old. Her mother, Alva, because of their desperate circumstances, Tabitha Hicks in the little town of Percy was inboxed by a teacher when she...
who are still in desperate circumstances. And the brain for children who are still in desperate circumstances. And the brain science for children who are still in desperate circumstances. And the brain science is there.
In the most desperate circumstances where they don't get the infantry support they need and they are supposed to have at all times. Artillery onto the field in the most desperate circumstances where they don't get the infantry support they need and they are supposed to have at all times.
Desperate circumstances. That's why we're making it even in the most desperate circumstances. That's why it's even in the most desperate circumstances. It's even in the most desperate circumstances. That's why,
like they're fleeing pretty desperate circumstances, particularly in Central America, which are, dare I say, category look like they're fleeing pretty desperate circumstances, particularly in Central America.
Fact. Because you think about the desperate circumstances of the people who are the bottom 1 or 2% of the income distribution, right? I mean, that's a stunning fact. Because you think about the desperate circumstances of the people who are the bottom 1 or 2% of the income distribution, but they are the ones who are actually going to improve most in terms of their relative income rank in the next generation.
Circumstances. They are of desperate circumstances. Of desperate circumstances. Of desperate circumstances. Of desperate circumstances.
Economic circumstances. We're in desperate 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 economic circumstances.
Needs met that they could still, even under the most desperate of circumstances, they could do meaningful, and they did do meaningful actions. They'd have to have their basic needs met that they could still, even under the most desperate of circumstances, they could do meaningful, and they did do meaningful actions.
And how desperate the circumstances are for the refugees in the Congo and all around the world, especially as compared to my comparatively safe and comfortable life. But it would be a mistake story, this is, and how desperate the circumstances are for the refugees in the Congo and all around the world.
Are poor. The circumstances that some of them find themselves in are desperate. Many care leavers across the country are poor. The circumstances that some of them find themselves in are desperate.